Hey everybody, Camille here from Paleo Kitchen TV, and we're doing a little bit of a follow-up. We did an interview a couple weeks ago called Keto versus Paleo, which is better for weight loss. That got a lot of interest, and it had me asking some more questions. So I am bringing on my friend Keith Norris. Hey Keith.
Hello Camille, good to see you.
Thank you for coming.
Yes.
I love virtual hangouts. I'm all the way over here in Maui and you're in Austin, and it's like you're sitting right next to me.
Right, two beautiful places. Although, I think I could maybe, there's a few places I would give Austin up for. Maui would probably be one of them. Yeah.
Well, we certainly have a spare room for you if you want to come and visit.
Hey, I'll buy my ticket tonight.
Yes. So I'm not sure if you guys know this, but I've got a great history with you guys. Michelle, your beautiful wife, has been on my TV show, and I have had a booth at the Paleo Effects Conference in Austin for several years. And now you've been seeing lots of my recipes and videos over on the Paleo Effects website. And I'm sort of embarrassed, but when I knew that you guys were doing Keto FX, I thought that you were doing Keto FX live in Austin. And it was just like yesterday when I realized that this amazing event that you're doing is online. So I knew that I had to talk with you more about it and see how I could, spread the good word. So glad we worked that out.
Well, you're not the only one, believe me. There was a lot of people who thought, both on the speaking side of things and on the attendee side of things, who thought this was a live event in Austin, just because obviously
that's what you guys have always done.
That's because that's what we do. But we have a bigger team now, and this is all part of the plan. This was the plan 5 years ago to try to do some other offerings. Our initial branch off of the big Paleo FX event was Health Entrepreneur FX, which was a live entrepreneurial event, and we still are doing that, and we will do that before this show, this upcoming show in April. But we've always had in our minds to do a summit type of thing or things throughout the year, and Keto FX was the first one to roll out the pike, and people were legitimately confused, thinking it was another live event. So
right. Yeah. And you guys, for anyone who's listening and doesn't know this, Paleo FX is really it's gotten so big. I remember the first year there was, I don't know, just tell us really quickly what Paleo FX is and how massive it's become over the last couple of years.
Yeah, so just to give you an idea, the first year that we had Paleo FX, we had 800 attendees, we had maybe 50 speakers, and we had 12 vendors, all on the and 10 of those vendors, we just said, if you will just show up, we will give you space. Just show up, bring your stuff, we'll give you space.
Yeah.
And it's gone from that to this year. We expect upwards of 7,000 people. We'll have over 150 vendors plus sponsors. That's how fast it's grown in 7 years. And it's just amazing to see what this community has done, because Paleo FX is just a reflection of the paleo community at large. And that's all we are. And it's just a testament to how fast and furious the paleo community has grown in 7 years.
Yeah. It's really amazing. And now we're seeing a lot of this voracious excitement about keto.
Yeah, totally.
So it's cool that you're jumping on with that. So I don't even know where this all came from. I don't know if these questions or comments came in before we even started, but I've already got a bunch of questions and comments. I'm gonna start looking through those, but sure. For anybody, just to get the ball rolling on this conversation, can you just give us a quick overview of the similarities and the differences between paleo and keto?
Yeah, well, mostly what I tell people is there's a very, very fine line between paleo and keto. And really because both of the diets exclude refined carbohydrates, both of the diets exclude sugar. Both of the diets emphasize very, very high quality, pure foods. And really the only difference between the two is in the macronutrient content. So where the paleo diet would be, how can I say, macronutrient indifferent as far as how the split goes. In fact, you can even have some people who are pescatarian, right? Just a fairly high carbohydrate content, very, very low protein, and even a low fat content. That would be considered a paleo diet.
Right.
Now we're just going to flip that around, and on the keto diet, we are going to emphasize the macronutrient breakdown, and we're going to emphasize the fact that it's a very, very low carbohydrate diet, and we're going to emphasize the fact that it's a high fat diet.
Right.
So if you're looking at macronutrient content, we're talking high fat, moderate protein, scant carbohydrate. And that's really the only difference between the two.
Right. Well, though it does seem like, paleo definitely has a focus on the quality of ingredients. Now, I would hope that would be the case with keto, and certainly that is what we advocate for. But I do see that is not always, the talk of pastured meat or, even getting your fats from grass-fed sources. That's not always something that's talked about. Though I know that the experts you're bringing on and inside of our community, quality always matters.
Yes, and our take is, the paleo take is that yes, quality is paramount. And so we always emphasize the quality of the foods we bring in, and we just extend that into the ketogenic diet. Now, the ketogenic diet has been around for a long, long time. I mean, this was a diet that originally came about as a first stepping stone in the treatment of seizures. Mm-hmm. So there are people who have come into the keto camp who have, how can we say, bypassed the whole paleo mindset and the whole paleo thing. They've just come right into the keto side of things. And for those people, quality might not be an issue to them, or it might not be a concern, but I can say for sure, those coming in from the paleo side of things, that is a paramount interest. And our message going out to even those who have come to this summit and come to this teaching, ours is we would like to educate them on the quality of the foods that they put in their body.
Yes, most definitely. And I don't know, but it seems from my experience that in general, that men have a much easier time losing weight than women. And it seems even with keto, I mean, I've been watching people, I've been listening to different thought leaders, and I know that there are some female keto thought leaders now, and you're going to be interviewing many of them in keto, in the Keto Summit. But for many women, myself included, the same kind of keto approach that can work just almost instantly and miraculously for men, it's not always true for women. So I know that you are not the super duper expert on these topics, and that we will need to follow along with the summit to really understand. But can you give me an overview of why this is?
Yeah, from the 30,000 foot view overview. Well, first of all, isn't it always the way, Camille, that guys when you boil it down, guys just have very, very few dials to tweak compared to females. Females come into this, especially hormonally, with a lot of dials that have to be perfectly dialed in. And, you guys are set for childbirth. I mean, that's the biologically the female function. So there's a lot more going on hormonally with you guys. Ergo, there's a lot more that can go wrong. Ergo, there's a lot more care that has to be taken when we shift the body's fuel source. Right. Or if we shift anything, any kind of stress to the female body is going to be a stress, whether it's workout, whether it's job, whether it's diet, whether it's just stress in general over anything, lack of sleep, you name it. And so for many women, what I found out in doing the summit is, for many women, it's not necessarily the keto diet that gives them trouble is the fact that it becomes one more stress in their lives
right.
that they have to get over. And so it's in all of these experts, there wasn't one expert that said the ketogenic diet cannot work for women. But almost across the board, they said there has to be a slower lead in for a female who is coming from maybe a SAD diet,
right.
or even a female who's been in a traditional paleo diet that might have been a higher carbohydrate paleo diet. So the lead in has to be slower. You just can't slam the macronutrient content back around. And females really have to pay attention, like I said before, of all the additional stresses in their life. So this, and I've been a trainer for many years too, and I've seen this because I tried to get all of my clients to go more towards a ketogenic diet because I knew it worked. Just practically, it works. And I'll just put that out there. If done right, it really works. But I would have female clients, and it was just the nature of my clientele that I got the type A attorneys, doctors, and that type of client. Well, you know, I have a 40-ish-year-old female client come in who's a single mom, who's got 3 kids, who's working 70 hours at the law firm. She's doing 5 workouts a week and trying to crush it. And,
wow.
Oh, by the way, she's doing the intermittent fasting, and she wants to go hardcore keto right off the bat. And you have to walk those people back off the cliff and go, why? First of all, why? And why? Okay. And if that answer is legitimate, then why do we have to do it so fast? Let's just take a step back. Let's tap the brakes a little bit and let's ease into this, because that's just going to be one additional stress that's going to derail your progress. So when it goes off the rails for females, that's where it goes off the rails. And I would say the second point, for females who are doing a ketogenic diet and trying to intermittent fast at the same time, that can be tricky. And again, it's
so maybe one or the other.
Yeah, one or the other. Do one or the other. And then if everything's working well and you still want to take an additional step, maybe you want to, lose an extra few pounds. Maybe you want the benefits of the ketogenic diet for brain health, or for the mere fact, like I did today, I have gone all day on like 2 teaspoons of MCT oil and 4 strips of bacon. That's what I've had today. And I've ridden almost 10 miles on my bike, and I've done a pretty strenuous workout. And I won't eat until I'm at the Paleo FX offices right now. I won't eat till I ride another 8 miles to get home and eat later tonight. And I'm fine. I'm not hungry. My stomach's not growling. I hope I sound fairly intelligent. Everything's clicking right on along. So for me, the benefit of being a fat burner gives me the liberty to be able to do all of these things and not be tied to my food.
But you're also how long have you been doing this? You're probably pretty well fat adapted at this point, right?
Yeah. So I've been a paleo for over 20 years. And of that 20 years, probably the last 7 or so, I've really been more towards the ketogenic side of things. So I do have a long history with this. I am a male. I came into this in relatively good health to begin with. So I don't have that history. And the point is that females come into this, you have to honor where you're coming from. Right. And if you're somewhat broken when you come into this, you have to own that and be okay with it. And let's stair step through this process. And Norika Gaudas was one of the guests that I interviewed for this summit, and she goes into detail about how to stair step a female who might have thyroid issues, who might have hormonal issues, who might be perimenopausal, or actually in menopause. How to stair step through this in a sane, practical way and not rush into it to where this particular female might feel like she's just hitting a brick wall. Right. Because at the other side of it, there's lots of benefits to be had.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I will say that when I tried to do keto, I did that also. I went straight into it, and I did what I was told not to do, which is to try it when I was breastfeeding. I don't know if that is still the I don't know if that is
well, yeah, so that was covered actually. about, should someone transition into keto? If one of your listeners is pregnant right now and they're like, wow, I'd really like to try that diet. Is going into a ketogenic diet while you're pregnant a good idea? Well, it might be perfectly fine if you're having no issues with your pregnancy, your hormones are firing on all cylinders, everything looks relatively, everything's good, then yeah, you can transition right into it. But if things are looking a little screwy and, you're having problems with your pregnancy, it might not be, it's the common sense things, right, Camille? It's always,
right.
It's the common sense. If I'm having trouble with my pregnancy and my blood work looks a little bit weird, my thyroid's a little bit hanky right now, maybe now is not the right time. Let me get through this gestation period. Let me give birth to the beautiful, happy baby, and then we can transition into it. And same thing with breastfeeding, I would say.
Yeah, that was another thing, was that when I did it, I think my son was only he was less than a year old, and or even maybe, but I was nowhere. He's still breastfeeding that little chunk. He's 2.5, but I was definitely back then not ready at all to have my milk supply run dry, and I did notice that was happening, and I was just really afraid that that was going to happen. I wasn't really willing to take that risk. Well,
the one thing, if someone is transitioning into the diet and, and is starting to manipulate their macronutrient content, and they run into an issue like you did, all you have to do is flip back around to what you were doing and what was working for you before until you get past the point. And two, I'm a guy, but I have seen my wife go through birth and seen her go through, breastfeeding and all that. That's a stress on the body. It is. That's a huge stress. So, and a lot
of sleepless nights.
Yes, which is stress, right? It's all stress. So again, if your body is going through a stress like that, it might not be the right time to then, throw a monkey wrench in things and add yet another stress.
Right. Absolutely. So I didn't say this before, but if you were just joining us, please do let us know where you're joining us from. And some people are already so well educated, they knew this already. Hi, everybody. Okay, so I have a couple questions. Can I just pop those in before we keep going? Okay, first from Linda Mount. She says, I've been trying to do keto and paleo as close as I can. My kidneys are killing me. Maybe too much protein. To me, that sounds like a possibly yes. How would they determine that?
Well,
by working with like a functional medicine practitioner.
Yeah, you can do that, or I can tell you that one of the gentlemen that I interviewed for the summit, Luis Villaseñor from Keto Gains, he has a macronutrient calculator on his website, and right now I'm at a loss to give you that website. It's ketogains.com, I believe. Okay. But he has a macronutrient calculator there, and just the practicalities of having somebody identify that yes, eating a large amount of fat is okay. You can get people to buy into it intellectually, but what happens a lot of times when they actually fill their plate with food, and you look at that, you go, that's actually high protein, moderate fat, scant carbohydrate. Right. So it takes a while in practice to go, oh, okay, that is a lot of protein. And if you are taking in a high amount of protein, if you're healthy, it's no problem. If you have anything going on, it might cause, issues with your kidney, pains like that. The other part I would recommend too, so check your macronutrient profile, number one. Number two, make sure you're drinking water. I mean, these are all the common sense things, right? Right. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water along with this. And another thing too that was pointed out in many of these summit interviews was the need to ensure that we're getting enough electrolytes in the diet as well. The easiest fix is, and I do this personally, is I have about a bone broth can work. Oh, okay. But what I do is I have a salt and lemon, about 12 ounces of water every morning with about half a teaspoon of sea salt and a half a lemon squeezed into it.
First thing in the morning?
First thing in the morning. And that really, really helps. And so there's a couple things. Number one, I want to keep my mineral content up high. Mm-hmm. Number two, you will crave salt more doing this diet.
Right.
And, you know, from a biological perspective, there is a reason for cravings for salt. Right. And so now that I've started doing that, adding a little salt in the morning and taking that in, I don't have those cravings anymore. And I've never had any kind of kidney problems with that. But so my advice, check your macronutrient profile, make sure you're actually having a high fat and not that. What we don't want to do is turn this into an Atkins diet.
Right. Yeah. Can you speak to what even just the difference between Atkins and keto?
Yeah. So, Atkins was, without going way down the rabbit hole, Atkins was kind of indiscriminate on fat and protein. He just said, eat high protein.
Don't eat any carbs, right?
Yeah, and so what would happen was it turned into a high protein diet, which yes, people would lose weight on that too. There's, yeah, you'll lose weight on that for sure. The problem with that is it's a little hard on the kidneys, trying to process all of that protein. So, when the question comes up, I'm having kidney issues, it would lead me to believe that she has probably morphed this diet into more of an Atkins type thing. Yes, more fat, less protein.
And I know for myself, when I first started eating, if you're just getting started with paleo or keto, I know I did this. It's so easy to do. Is you're looking like, okay, well, if there's not any carbs on this plate, what do you think to put more of? It's like, okay, we'll eat a bigger steak, eat more sausage, have more chicken. And it's very easy it's a lot easier to switch your carbs for protein than it is your carbs for fat. It seems like for people in the beginning. Yeah.
And in fact, whenever I lead people down this path, when I've had face-to-face contact with people, or if I'm, talking them through it, clients, for instance, I don't even worry about the macronutrient content at first, because I want them just, number one, to focus on the refined carbohydrates, the sugars, and all of that. Mm-hmm. And once we get that in place, then we can start looking at the plate and start going, okay, what's the difference between a fatty cut of meat and a lean cut of meat? Right. And then we'll start having that discussion. And then we'll start opting for more of the fatty cuts of meat. Right. And another thing, too, that this is where food quality comes in, right? Because the animals, the toxins, just like in humans, are going to be stored in the fat of the animal. So we want to make sure that we're having pastured animals, grass-fed animals, humanely raised animals. If at all possible, we want to skew that way. And so those fat sources don't always have to be animal sources either. They can certainly be coconut oils. MCT, avocados are a fantastic. I'm sure the people listening right now wouldn't be grossed out by this, but I can tell you it's an odd thing whenever I'm traveling or whatever, and I'll have a can of sardines and an avocado, and we're just kind of sitting out at a Trader Joe's or whatever, and people are just going, is he really going to do that? Is he really eating that? But that's how you want to think of these things. And avocados and avocado oil is another great source as well.
Yes, totally. And then the other thing I think that I know I personally am an advocate of still eating. So we're talking about looking at your plate, right? And there's maybe this much protein. And the thing is, to get most of your calories from fat doesn't actually, because a fat calorie is, 9 to 4.
9 calories. Yeah. So it's double the energy impact per gram.
Right. So you may have like a totally keto meal, which has a fair number of non-starchy vegetables, a moderate piece of protein, and then just, like an avocado, a scoop of aioli, like an olive oil salad dressing. And it may not look like 80% fat because you're not eating, just a trough of mayonnaise, but it actually per calorie that is what it is, which confuses people sometimes.
Yeah, it does confuse people because vegetables are a great example because they have so much fiber in them that's undigestible carbohydrate. So, most vegetables don't take broccoli, for instance. It's not very much carbohydrate and a lot of broccoli.
Right.
You can put away a lot of broccoli smothered in ghee or mustard butter, and that's scant carbohydrates. A lot of fiber, cool. We would need fiber too,
right?
But that would be heavy on the fat side, and that's a good example. And this, I tell people too, you don't have to get this perfectly right out of the gate. And so, it's a dance, all right? I mean, you come out of the gate, you stumble a little bit, you learn, you have somebody lead you, you ask questions, you research, you'll get it a little bit more right, continue to go, you'll get it a little bit more dialed in. But I think the big thing is don't worry about dialing it in 100% right out of the gate.
Right. Focus on the low hanging fruit, which is getting out the junky carbs.
Yeah, that's it. That's the easiest place to start, and just take it step by step by step. I like the Kaizen method. If anyone is familiar with that, the whole idea of that is be better tomorrow than you were today. Very, very simple, and it's actionable, and it doesn't make it overwhelming. All I have to do is be better tomorrow than I was today.
Yeah, I totally agree. Wow, our little chat thing is blowing up right now. Here's a good question from Carol. What do you do about the salt if you have high blood pressure?
Yeah, and so I'm not the scientist here. I just say that, but that as well was covered within the summit. And the salt, high blood pressure, there's really no correlation there. Okay. For a large number of people. For some people, a very small percentage are salt sensitive, and salt will affect their blood pressure. But for the vast majority, salt is not an issue.
Yeah. Okay. So I have another question. Just going back, because I am still of the belief that vegetables are really important. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing a lot of recipes. This is going back to the point of eating too much protein. I'm seeing a lot of keto recipes floating around that look more like Atkins recipes. Sure. That are like, I think I saw like a tuna casserole or something that all it really was mm-hmm. like tuna and a bunch of cream and cheese. And there might have been a couple pieces of onion and celery in it. Yep. But I think, like to your point of fiber being important, the difference between soluble and insoluble fibers, mm-hmm. and just helping to just clear people up around the role of vegetables in the ketogenic diet.
Yeah, and I think you will see, how can I say, you will see a non-preference for vegetables coming from camps that have not come through the Paleolithic camp.
That makes sense.
So, and there is a mindset out there that all carbohydrates break down to glucose. So it doesn't matter if it's a Twinkie or a stalk of broccoli, it's going to break down to glucose. Very true. Minus the fiber on the broccoli side. Very true. It all breaks down to the same substance. However, those of us in the paleo camp are very, very cognizant of the nutrient density within our foods. So we don't look at food just as fuel. We look at it as a source of nutrients.
Right, or just as macronutrients. It's also a source of micronutrients. Yes. Right.
Yes, and there are certain camps out there that either poo-poo that idea, or they probably were the way I was 30 years ago when, I was, 20 whatever years old, college football player, and I was, bulletproof. What's ever going to happen to me in this body? Kind of coming at it from that mindset. And they say, youth is wasted on the young. I would totally agree with that. But as we get a little bit older, a little bit wiser, we realize that, you know what, the nutrient content of my food does matter.
Yes.
And I am of that mindset now. So
yes, and vegetables, and don't fear eating. I mean, most veggies are fine with keto. Right? I mean, maybe not sweet potatoes, but there may even be a place for that if you're doing some, like, actually, maybe let's talk about that.
Sure.
Because I know the bulletproof diet is sort of keto-ish, but they say that like doing a small amount of sweet potato in an evening meal is can be really beneficial. And I have noticed for women and for myself even, it can be really easy for me to eat pretty low carb all throughout the day, but then it seems like can be more beneficial to eat something like a little bit of sweet potato or something at night, or maybe not every night, but some nights, or doing some, I don't know if it's called carb cycling or what they call it nowadays. But.
Yeah. So carb cycling is really what I do. So just using myself as an example, and you can break it down from there. But I have had no carbohydrate. I'm trying to think, have I had any carbohydrates today? None. Yeah.
You've eaten almost nothing today, so that should be easy.
And I've eaten almost nothing today too. So I've gone through no carbohydrates. Now, I've worked out very, very hard today. I've ridden my bike quite a long way. I will have carbohydrates tonight, and I will have a starchy component to that. And that starchy component is probably going to be, Michelle, what are you cooking tonight? I don't know what she's cooking tonight, but I would imagine there's going to be some kind of a starchy tuber, whether it be sweet potato, whether it be whatever, a lot of carrots, something like it's going to be starchy, and I'm going to eat a lot of it. Because now I am coming at this from a little different perspective. I am at the body weight I'm perfectly happy with my percentage of body fat. Mm-hmm. I am trying to fuel athletic performance as well. So I'm cycling in and out of, I'm doing this cyclic ketogenic diet. So I'll have a higher carbohydrate content meal on days that I work out. So I go with I have to earn my carbohydrates.
Okay.
And today is one of those earning nights. Now, for most people, they don't have to do that, but they can.
What about for women and hormones? Doesn't that sometimes?
Yes, it does. And so Elle Russ is another person who is, and I don't know if your listeners know who Elle Russ is, but she is a super, super smart woman who has battled thyroid issues. She is part of the Bulletproof Empire, Mark Sisson's Bulletproof. Mark Sisson's blueprint. Yeah. Blooper. She's part of that empire, and she does. I believe she's a podcast host for them, but she talks about that. But she talks about that as well. That females with thyroid or hormonal issues, that it's beneficial for them to have that added carbohydrate at night, and that's just one of the things that you kind of have to navigate and you have to play with and figure it out as you go along. But yeah, there's lots of information in the summit on that as well.
Yeah, somebody is asking a question about a meal plan. And I think that one person, I think Leanne Vogel, you interviewed her, right?
Yes, sure did.
She's got healthfulpursuits.com, I think is her website. And she talks a lot about optimizing keto for women. And I know that she does meal plans, so you may want to check her out. Somebody just said that they had salmon and beets for dinner tonight. Beets? Does that sound good?
Sounds perfect to me. In fact, I'll be over in a little bit. Linda, I'll be over in a little bit for some salmon and beets. That's it. By the way,
that's sort of shocking to me. I wouldn't think that you would eat beets on doing keto. Okay.
Yeah. Now, again, you have to look at your energy expenditure throughout the day.
Right.
And you have
what are your goals? What are your
goals? Yeah. And how many beets are you going to eat? All of these things matter, but yeah, I can't think of a better dinner. Slather it all in butter and we're good to go.
Yeah. Add a little extra of that. So, okay. So there is an interesting comment. I think this was before the show. This may have come up. This is definitely an opinion. She said keto because my question was keto for women ? So I think her answer was keto in general, yes, but fasting is basically a self-destruct button. that is one thing that does not work for women at all, unless you want to be half-starved zombie who can't sleep and has brain fog 24/7.
It certainly can be. I would say that it certainly can be, but again, it depends on the person. I have seen females who are, and I will say this, younger females hormonally, how can we say, stable at that point. You know, we're talking 28-year-old female in good health who has been able to, you know, do ketogenic cycling and intermittent fasting, all of that. Now, will she be able to do that forever? I don't know. Will she be able to do it, you know, after childbirth? I don't know. Will she be able to do it in menopause? Probably not. So all of these things have to be considered. Yeah.
And so this is a question for me, but I'm sure other people have it as well. So I have done some intermittent fasting. I use this really great little app. Of course, I was going to tell you guys the name, and now I have a brain fart.
Of course.
But it has you fast basically along with like the sunrise and sunset, having you eat when the sun is up and not, you know, when it's dark, and that goes along with some other natural health philosophies. Zero, that's what it's called. It is a really simple fasting app called Zero, if you guys want to check it out. And I actually found good success with that. I would just try to stop eating by 6 o'clock and then not eat until about 8 o'clock the next morning. But there were different, and they were of the belief that meant that was nothing. It maybe you could do some water, but I've heard other people say, well, as long as you're not doing protein or as long as you're not doing carbs, then you can actually stay in that fasted state. And for me, I mean, if I can have something in my coffee to keep me going, I mean, I could probably fast happily so I could certainly do the 16-hour window without problem, as long as I can have a cup of coffee in the morning. So what can I put in my coffee and still be in a fasted state? Is it just fat?
Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of these rules and tricks, and they all have their place and they all work to the extent that it gets us not thinking so much about what we're putting in our mouths and what we're doing, right? Because that's another stress. And again, anything you can do to reduce stress, and really my hierarchy, sugar, refined carbohydrates, and stress are the big three. Those are if we could just take care of that, number one, that is huge. And then you get into the thing, well, okay, now if I can shorten my eating window, and how would I do that? Well, you know, there's different ways I can do it. I can do it by the clock. I can do it by things like sun up, sun down, those type of things. That gets us in a quote unquote compressed eating window, which is good because we want to give the digestive tract a chance to relax so that it's not working overtime 24/7. And it also, and calories.
And also I was just reading that that is it something with an A, atrophagy or
autophagy. Yes.
Autophagy, where it's basically like your body is going to go around and scavenge for denatured proteins in your body to get its protein requirements. And
that's part of one of the major benefits of fasting is exactly that. And across cultures, you know, in their religious practices, just about every culture has some kind of a fasting element involved. Well, there's no surprise, because fasting is very beneficial for the body. You just don't want to do it all the time, obviously, because then we get back to the stress side of things.
Right.
So cyclic fasting in a healthy individual is very, very beneficial. Then we have to go, well, what is a healthy, individual? Is a healthy individual a 35-year-old overstressed, hormonally imbalanced female? I would say no, not at all. So maybe you want to back off of the fasting in that person until they get themselves into a more stable footing, and then you can introduce it. So all of these, and I can tell you this: for every positive you hear, you're going to hear a negative, right? And for every for every claim of X works, you're going to hear a claim of X did not work for me.
Right.
And so a lot of this is, we know what the basics are. We know the basics include get rid of refined carbohydrates, get rid of sugars, and you eat whole natural foods, and And we know what the baseline is. Within that baseline, there is a lot of leniency, and there is a lot of N=1 experimentation that has to take place. Right. And what you do when you take in this information is take it in. I like the Bruce Lee approach of take what is useful and discard what is not. But I don't think anybody out there is going to be able to get just a template from somebody and it's going to automatically work.
Right.
They all have to be tweaked a little bit according to lifestyle, according to where you're coming in from, according to your current health, according to your current tastes, and your lifestyle is a big part of it. Now, Camille, back to your question of, can you have some the butter in your coffee and still be fasting? Well, you're not fasting because you're taking in calories, but how does your body perceive that? Right. And that's really what matters. I would say that would kick you out of autophagy because now you actually have a calorie or a unit of energy that the body can use other than it attacking its own. And I say attacking. Right. And it's very beneficial. I don't mean attacking like it's going to hurt it, but it's the body's going to get some energy from somewhere, and it's going to get that energy from fat and damaged cells is where it's going to get its energy from. And you want periods of that.
Right, definitely. Yeah, I think I was reading on the Bulletproof blog, actually, he was recommending, or Dave was recommending even like doing like I mean, there's so many things you can do, but talking about like doing a very low protein thing. And this is not necessarily in conjunction with all the other stuff, but doing very low protein, like 1 or 2 days a week to also help to kick your body into that. I thought that was interesting. I had never heard that before. Yeah.
And that's actually, so that's kind of the vegetarian keto thing. And I work with a geneticist, a very good friend of mine too. And this is like the next step of what I'm going to try. I'm going to go a couple days a week with scant protein, more vegetables and very, very high fat. So essentially all I'm doing is increasing the fat a little bit higher and dropping the protein even lower and going a couple days that way. Yeah, and just see how it goes.
Interesting. Yeah, I interviewed the woman from Toolbox Genomics a couple weeks ago. Are you familiar with that program?
I am. On the periphery, yeah, I am.
It's pretty cool. You take your 23andMe results, and it just is like just a pretty seamless integration, and then it gives you a bunch of different recommendations based upon your snippets or whatever it's called.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, it told me that I was better off without too much saturated fat. And I know that there are different ways of looking at it, but that I'm better off with like avocados and olives and different kinds of oils from plants. And then it told me something else, like it told me some really, really interesting things. And I love that whole conversation. I know that it's some easier for some people than others, to get a whole gamut of testing done, but all heading back to what we have agreed upon is that, I mean, there's not one diet for everybody. And I don't even think that there's one diet for one person forever. I know that I had a lot of success with a certain kind of paleo before I had a child. And I have done different things to get the results I wanted now that my hormones have changed. I'm a little bit older, and being willing to let go of the dogma and the labels just in service to finding what works for your body. I eat quinoa and rice now, the horror, but it really, and it's working for me. And I'm not personally currently doing a super high fat diet, and maybe I'll try it again in the future. But I think I'm giving you all permission to, and I think Keith is as well, is just continuing to just work with your body. I think anyone who's in this interest in game of health has probably been tinkering and fine tuning for quite some time. Yep. And just to really keep looking to your body and asking your body, does this feel good to me? Is this working? And, and working with, and if you don't have the ability to do that on your own, then working with someone who can help you to come up with a strategy that is going to work for your unique needs is really important.
Yeah, I think it's very, very important for people to realize that we don't know everything. We never will know everything, and we're learning as we go along too. That's number one. Number two is what may have worked beautifully for you in the past may not work as beautiful for you in the future, because our bodies change. Our bodies are in a constant state of change, and so we have to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah.
So it's this constant dance that we're doing, right? We won't. There is no perfect. There is only getting better,
improving. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think that is a good place to stop. I know that you're busy with lots of interviews right now, but the summit has started. It started today, right?
It rolled out today. It sure did. Yeah.
So do you want to just tell us, you've been telling us about the summit pretty all throughout, but do you want to tell us anything more about the summit? The link to register is in the description. So for anyone, just when you're ready to do that, go ahead. Tell us a little bit more.
So if you go to the link that Camille will provide in the comments section or at the bottom of this block, the way the summit works is these 20 interviews that I've done over the past few weeks will roll out over the next 2 weeks. It started today. And the interviews will roll out, and they will be free on initial rollout, about 2 or 3 per day over the next 2 weeks. All you have to do is go to the link that Camille provided. You'll be given instructions of how to go get to those videos when they roll out. Those videos will be live as they roll out for 24 hours. You can watch them for free. It's all cool. If you choose to buy the package of all 20, the good thing about that is I can tell you there is a fire hose of information that's going to be fired out in every one of these interviews. And so the good thing is if you buy the package, you will have access to these interviews 24/7, 365, and you'll be able to watch them again. You'll be able to stop, rewind, go back, Google, search, stop, rewind, go back, Google, search. So I can tell you there's a lot of information that's coming out. And for the next 2 weeks, the price is $79 for the package, for the entire package of 20, and that's 20 interviews, plus each one of the speakers is given all kinds of free material as well.
Probably I would imagine some meal plans and stuff like that.
You can't even imagine all of you will have a PhD in keto by the time this is done, between the interviews and all the free material. So it's $79 for the next 2 weeks. And then after the rollout of the summit is done, which would be on let me see if I have the date right, on the 9th.
February 9th, yeah.
February 9th. The packages will still be available, but they will go up to the normal price of $99.
Okay, perfect. And I know that you mentioned a couple of the standouts for women. Nora Gagaudis, her interview. What was her name again? Elle Russ.
Elle Russ. Yeah, it was fantastic. Stephanie Person was
Leanne
Vogel. Yeah. JJ, I was trying to think. I have an interview with JJ Virgin coming up right after we get off, and so JJ Virgin, who has a tremendous story, both with using the ketogenic diet for females and body composition, but also in helping save her son from or recovering from TBI, pretty severe TBI injury. Super interesting interview. And ironically enough, for the more athletically inclined females, Luis Villaseñor was really, really cool. Rob Wolf gave a great talk with Chris Kresser, Dom DiAgostino. I mean, there's just so many and so much information out there. It's incredible.
That is awesome. Well, I cannot wait to tune in. I'm going to go plug my computer in because it's about to die. And I think I'm going to tune into them while I wait for my son to come home. Keith, it is always a pleasure speaking with you. I am excited for this next creative project that you guys have unleashed. Everything you guys do is just totally top notch. So thanks. I'm excited for the world to glean from all of your work.
So am I. So am I. Thanks for having me on, Camille.
You're welcome. See you guys all later. Bye-bye.